We're continuing our message series called Balanced, Getting Your Family Financially Fit. And it's kind of a neat series, I think. If you notice the theme this morning, God's faithfulness is great. It's constant. It's always there. And when I think about the things that God expects out of me, sometimes we kind of get the idea that they're a little backwards to what we're used to thinking or how the world says we should do things. But these are kingdom principles that if we follow and have faith in God, He will bless us because He is faithful. Amen? So we're talking about this morning the habits. We're going to talk about the habits of financial health. Today and next week will be very practical information, so I would recommend, again, if you've never taken notes before, you might want to start today. This is good stuff. You want to put these into practice. If I want to be healthy in any area of my life, I've got to develop healthy habits, right? If I want to be physically healthy, I have to exercise, and I have to eat right, and I have to get enough sleep, and I have to do certain things with my body that will get me there to that physical fitness. If I want to have a healthy marriage, then I have to make sure that I develop healthy habits of relationships, how I treat people, the way I talk with them, the way I respond to people, and the way I interact with people, the way I listen to the people. And the same is true if I want to develop healthy finances. I've got to develop some habits, some certain financial habits, so that I can fall in line and be financially fit. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I really believe that God wants to do a miracle in your life. If you found yourself in a financial hole and you're in debt and you've got all this stuff going on, like how am I going to retire and all these other questions, I believe that God does want to do something special in your life. And the deal with that is it may require a change in attitude, a change in behavior, a change in your actions that got you into this hole in the first place. But you'll get there, okay? So we're again going to look at the words of the wisest man who ever lived. King Solomon, of course, wrote the book of Proverbs and Ecclesiastes. That's where we'll spend most of our time this morning. And we're going to look at some practical ways to develop financial health, financial fitness in your lives. So I'm going to give you 8 habits. These 8 habits are in order. So number 1 is the most important, number 2 is the next important, number 3, and so on and so forth. They build on each other. So as you develop them, they get stronger and stronger. All right, so let's jump right in. If I'm going to get financially fit, the first thing I have to do, and this is what God teaches us, write this in your notes, I've got to remember that God is my source. God is my source. God is the source of all my supply. My source is not my salary. My source is not the economy. It's not my savings. It's not people. My source is not even my wife, though I lean on her and rely on her. My source is in God. He alone provides everything for my use, for my enjoyment, for whatever. The reason this is so important is because you must put your security in something that can never be taken away from you. That's why this is so important. Your health can be taken away from you. Your wife or your husband can be taken away from you. Your finances can be taken away. Your possessions, everything that you have in this world can be taken away from you. You can lose your job. You can lose your savings. You can lose your spouse. You can lose your health. But the one thing that nobody can ever take away from you, the one thing that you can never lose, is your relationship with God. That is forever. He cannot be taken away from you. This is a good thing. So that means He is the source of all your supply. All right, Deuteronomy chapter 8 and verse 18. It says this, "But remember the Lord your God. Don't forget who He is, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth." It's God who gives you the ability to produce wealth. He gives you the energy, He gives you the thoughts, He gives you the mental capacity, He gives you the ability to go out there and hold a job, have a career, whatever it is you do, so that you can make money, so that He can give you the blessings He wants to give you. It comes from God and God alone. A couple weeks ago, we talked about this, right? God owns it all, and He does what with us? He loans it to us, right? Everything that we have in this world is loaned to us by God. It wasn't yours before you were born. It's not yours right now, and it won't be yours when you die. God has loaned it to you, and we are to be good stewards, and we are to be good managers of what God is letting us use while we're here on earth. All right, so you get to use what God has given you. So God, number one, God is the source of all my supply. Here's the second habit. If I want God's blessing on my finances, I've got to do this. Number two, I need to make money honestly. Makes sense. So God, everything comes from God. I go out and get a job. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make some money. I'm going to go get a job. I'm going to go work. I'm going to have a career. I'm going to go do things for certain people, and they're going to pay me money. Here's the deal. God does not bless cheaters. God does not bless crooks. God does not bless deceptive people. He doesn't bless people who steal and take and take and take. I want to look at a few verses out of the book of Proverbs, and there's just a couple of points I want to make along these lines. Proverbs 15:27, we'll start here because the family is the most important, right? Proverbs 15:27, we read this a couple of weeks ago. A greedy man brings what? He brings trouble on his family. Why does he do this? Well, listen, I can go out and I can make a bunch of money for my family, but if I make it dishonestly, I'm going to bring grief to my family. It's like bringing a curse. I'm going to have problems at home. Some people wonder, why do I have problems at home? Well, maybe this is it. Now, you might be thinking, well, Jeremy, I'm not out, I'm not robbing banks, I'm not knocking off convenience stores. Okay, so what's the big deal here? Well, I think it's great, but let me ask this. Are you honest in every aspect of your job or career? Now think about this. For instance, do you give a full day's work? Your employer hired you to give you a full day so that you would give them a full day's work because they need to make a certain profit and they need to, meet certain quotas and things like that. So do you give a full day's work? Or do you come in late? You show up late every day, or do you go home early, or you take long lunch breaks, or maybe you take different kinds of breaks in the office, or how many of you check Facebook or social media at work? Don't raise your hand. I don't need to know. I found this really interesting. A recent study shows that 2/3, 66% of American workers spend time checking social media while on the clock. That's a lot. Now, I took this a little further, I wonder how much time they actually spend. Get this, 20% of those people, 1 in 5 of those people say that they spend more than 1 hour every day doing so. Yikes! There's something wrong with that. Now, you wonder why. Human resources and all these companies, Big Brother, right? Why are they making different rules for Facebook and social media? Well, people are stealing time from the company and getting paid for it. You're robbing them. It's dishonest. Maybe you never thought of that, but it is. Maybe you pad your expense account. Maybe resources at the office come up missing. Oh, they'll never miss that paper or those paper clips or whatever. Maybe you fudge your taxes. I don't know what it looks like. God says, you know what? I don't bless that kind of stuff. Whatever you're doing in the workplace, I'm not going to bless that, because what's going to happen is you're getting your money dishonestly and you're coming home and you have strife in your family. Why? Because you're greedy. You're greedy. Here's another one. Look at Proverbs 16:11. This is more for the business owners. Honest scales and balances are from the Lord. All the weights in the bag are of His making. What in the world? You might scratch your head. What's that mean? Well, if you're a business owner, the question might be, are you being fair to your clients? Are you being fair to those who purchase your goods and those kinds of things? Or do you kind of tip the scales a little bit? Maybe even more importantly, as we expect our employees to work hard for us, give us a full day's work, but on the flip side of that, do you treat your employees with respect, with fairness? Do you make them work off the clock? Do you make them do things that maybe it's out of their job description? Are you causing them strife? We've got to be careful how we treat people in the workplace. And God says if you're doing these kinds of things, you're being dishonest, and God does not bless that. Here's another one, Proverbs 28. He who increases his wealth by exorbitant interest amasses it for another person, and that person who is going to be kind to the poor. This verse is interesting. You think about all those companies out there that are loaning these high interest rate loans, right? If you make money by charging high interest rates, God says you're going to lose it all to somebody who will give it to the poor. I would love to see this work out today, right? We're talking about usury here, right? Usury means illegally charging these high interest rates, excessively high interest rates to people who really can't afford them. It's what loan sharks do. You know, that we have all these little places around town that pop up, and these guys, they know their customers can't go down to the bank and get a regular loan, so they charge these high interest rates, and man, they make the money. And they take advantage of people and they cheat them. In America, we have these usury laws, and they usually pop up every few years because of this verse right here in the Bible. So we're not supposed to cheat people and charge these high interest rates. Here's another one, Proverbs 13:11. Again, Solomon says, dishonest money dwindles away, but he who gathers money little by little makes it grow. Remember what I told you Warren Buffett's number one law of finances is? Do you remember it? Anybody remember? Don't lose what you already have. So whatever you already have, make sure you don't lose it. Well, that's what we're talking about here. You need to steer clear. I'm telling you, steer clear of the lottery, casinos, get-rich-quick schemes. These are dangerous things. They're tough. I'm not saying these are evil or they're sins, but you got to be careful because God may look at that and say, if this is what you're trusting to build your income, you're going to be in big trouble. Okay, you're setting yourself up to be duped by certain people out there. Don't lose what you've already made. Take what you've made, find ways to make it grow little by little. So God says, if you want my blessings in your finances, first remember that I am your security and I'm your source. And then he says, make your money honestly. Here's the third one. Honor God first. Honor God first. So God is my source. I recognize that. I go out and make money. What do I do when I get my money? I put Him first. Most of you know this principle, the principle of tithing. The bottom line is this. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because we've covered this issue pretty well. But the bottom line is this. Wherever I want God to bless, whatever I want God to bless in my life, I put Him first in. Again, here's the kingdom principle. Makes no sense to our human minds. But it's so true. God will bless it. If I want God to bless my marriage, I will put God first in my marriage. If I want God to bless my time, then I'm going to put God first in my schedule. If I want God to bless my money, I put Him first in my money. This is the principle of tithing. That right off the top, I give Him the first 10% of my gross income. I'll give you 4 verses on this. Look in your bulletin outlines there. 4 things here. There's a promise. If you tithe, here's a promise. Proverbs chapter 3. It says, honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of your crops. The Israelites understood that to be that 10%, that tithe. Then he says, your barns will be filled to what? Overflowing. Your vats will brim over with new wine. This is amazing. Again, one of those kingdom principles doesn't make sense. I'm going to give my money away, and God's going to increase what I have. It's true, folks. I'm telling you. My wife and I have been tithing. We've been tithing for years, and it's amazing how God keeps blessing us. You can't outgive God, honestly. You cannot do it. The promise is that God will bless us abundantly if we tithe. Here's number 2, the purpose. Why do we tithe? Deuteronomy 14. Be sure to set aside a tenth, a tithe, of all that your fields produce each year. Now remember, the Israelites, they were farmers, they grew crops, they raised cattle and sheep and all these things. That was their economy. They didn't have money. I mean, they had money, but their economy was in crops and cattle and flocks. So whatever they produced in a year's time, at the end of that year, they would take 10% of that and they bring it to God. That was their tithe. Why? Verse 23. So that you may learn to revere the Lord your God always. Tithing teaches us to trust God. It teaches us to revere Him and respect Him, and it brings us into a closer relationship with Him. Again, it doesn't make sense. If I give God 10%, well, man, that's 10% of my income. Well, I could do so much more with that. I'm telling you, you're going to do so much less with that. You give God 10%, He will bless you even more. Why? Because you're going to revere Him. The purpose of tithing is to teach us to learn to revere Him. Here, number 3, the place. Where do I tithe? Do I tithe to the United Way? Do I tithe to the Red Cross? Do I tithe to my brother who's been out of work for 3 years? Where do I tithe? Tithing is an act of worship. And these other things I just mentioned, this charity. Tithing is an act of worship. It goes to God. It doesn't go to my friend. It doesn't go to some charity. It doesn't go to anybody like that. I want you to look at Malachi 3:10. Man, this is like God is talking here. God took over Malachi. This is what I'm going to say to my people. Here's God talking here, Malachi. He says, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse. What's the storehouse? What was the storehouse in the Old Testament? The temple. The Israelites knew that. They brought the whole tithe into the temple. Why? That there may be food in my house. The ministries of the temple had to be taken care of. The priests who served in the temple had to be taken care of. So the people could go there and worship. And so God says, look at this. I go back to the promise. Test me in this, He says, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that you will not have room enough for it. I didn't include the next verse. The next verse says, if you don't do it, bad things are going to happen. Famines, pestilences, all this bad stuff. People scratch their heads. Why am I not making it a home? Why am I having strife in my family? Why doesn't things add up at the end of the month? Test me in this, says the Lord. Bring it to me as an act of worship. What day do we worship? On the day we worship on Sunday morning, right? 1 Corinthians 16:2. Paul says, on the first day of every week, that's the day we worship, right? Sunday morning. On the first day of every week, each one of you should set aside a sum of money in keeping with his income. Interesting. So here's the deal. If I make $10, I give $1 to God on Sunday morning. If I make $100, I give Him $10 on Sunday morning. That's what I do. It's on the first day of the week, on the first day, first part of my day, and the first part of my money, I am saying, God, You are number one in my life. I am trusting You, Lord, to take care of me, and I believe You will bless me because I'm doing this. And you need to circle this phrase, set aside, there in 1 Corinthians 16. You circle that phrase, set aside, because, that means you've got to plan it, right? You got to plan it. It's not an impulse. It's not, oh my goodness, it's offering time at church. What do I got in my wallet? Let me see. Oh, I got a 20. I'll throw that in. No. You need, like Saturday night, you need to sit down. Okay, 10%. I need to write out a check. You need to plan it. God expects that, to set it aside. It's not some impulse. Plan it the night before. Plan it 2 days before. I don't care. Just plan it, okay? So, honor God first. Here's number 4. Does this make sense? Save money wisely. Okay, so I make money. I give God 10%. Now I'm going to save it. Wait a minute, Jeremy. You're telling me I got to save my money before I pay my bills? Yes. Because if you don't save your money, you never will. It'll never happen. The Bible kind of tells us to do this. If you wait until all your bills are paid to start saving, you will never save anything. Some people are getting to retirement flat broke because they spent all their money and they never saved anything. So, give to God first. Pay yourself second. You deserve it. Then spend the rest of your money on your bills. Learn to live on it. Someone asked John D. Rockefeller, how did you get to be a mega millionaire? He said, it's simple. the 10-10-80 principle. He says, I give God 10% first, then I save 10%, and then I learn to live on 80%. Can you do that? Some of us are stretched so thin, it might be impossible. I challenge you to get there. Proverbs 21:20. It says, in the house of the wise are stores of choice food and oil. He learned how to save it up. He paid himself first. I know there's going to be times in my life where it's going to get rocky and I'm going to have an emergency. I'm going to need these things to survive. A foolish man, however, does what? Yep. He spends it on everything. Whatever money he brings in goes right back out. The wise man saves for the future. The foolish man spends whatever he gets. Maybe you should put this verse on a Post-it note and stick it to one of your credit cards or all of your credit cards. You know, it's so easy. I got my credit card, just charge it. Listen to this. In Japan, an average family saves 25% of their income. Isn't that amazing? 25% of their income is just saved. The average European saves 15% of his income. That's astounding to me. 15%. Last year, the average American spent equal or more than his or her income. Oh, there's something wrong. We're not saving anything, right? We're getting to retirement. We're broke. Why? We're spending it all. Again, look at Proverbs 13:11. Again, it says, dishonest money dwindles away. Here's the important part. He who gathers money little by little makes it grow. You need to start saving yesterday, right? You need to put money away yesterday. I know, but Jeremy, I'm in debt. You know, I get it. I get it, man. Trust me. But you got to find a way to put something into savings. I don't care if it's $5 a week. Get used to putting that money away, because as you get a little more mature and you start paying debt off, you're going to be able to get into that habit and you'll be able to add to it. And you'll have money saved up. Start the habit now. You can always grow it. Here's the fifth habit. You need to keep good records. Keep good records. We haven't even talked about paying our bills yet, have we? How are you going to pay your bills if you don't know where your money's going? This is a principle of accounting. You need to start writing down what you spend until you absolutely know where it's all going. I don't care if you spend $1 on a cup of coffee at McDonald's. It doesn't matter. Write it down. If you don't keep track of it, you're not going to know where it's going. It just kind of walks away. Proverbs 21:5. The plans of the diligent lead to profit, as surely as haste leads to poverty. You're getting your money, you're throwing it here and there, and you're buying coffee, and you're buying pop, and you're doing all this stuff, and your money, where'd my money go? You're being hasty with it. If you don't have plenty, you're not planning carefully. If you plan carefully, you'll have plenty. But I had this emergency, Jeremy. You don't understand. People, I do understand. We have emergencies. Everybody has emergencies. I have emergencies. You have emergencies. Everybody has emergencies. People get laid off. The car breaks down. People get their hours cut, so on and so forth. The difference between the people who make it and those who don't is that some people actually plan to expect emergencies. If you don't expect emergencies, of course you're going to be devastated by them. Makes sense. The plans of the diligent lead to profit, as surely as haste leads to poverty. You got to keep good records so you can plan carefully. You got to know where your money's going. Too many of us get to the end of the month and we wonder, where in the world did all my money go? The reason we don't know is because we don't keep good records. Look at Proverbs 27:23 and 24. Ooh, this is good. Be sure to know the condition of your flocks and give careful attention to your herds. Remember, Israelites, they were farmers. They needed to know what the condition of was in their flocks. Why? For riches do not endure forever. Ooh. The crown is not secure for all generations. It may not be here tomorrow. In those days, a person's wealth was tied up in his livestock. They didn't have banks. You know, they couldn't run down and put their money in a savings account, a Roth IRA, or anything like that. They didn't have that. You could tell how wealthy a person was by how many sheep he had. If he had a lot of sheep, he was wealthy. If he had a little bit of sheep, he was middle class. If he didn't have any sheep, he was poor. That's how the economy worked. But every farmer, if he knew what he was doing and wanted to save for the future, he knew the condition of his flocks and herds so that he can invest wisely. That's how he kept track. If you say, I don't know where it all goes, that should be a warning light for you. It really should. Like, when you get to the end of the month, I have no idea where my money went. That should be a warning light to you. When it comes to your finances, you need to keep track of these things. You need to keep track of 4 things: what I owe, what I own, what I earn, and where it all goes. What I owe, what I own, what I earn, and where it's all going. Those are the 4 things when it comes to finances I need to keep track of. If you don't know these 4 things, you're already in deep trouble. It's scary. Proverbs 25:3. Ooh, this is good too. Cast but a glance at riches, and they're gone, for they will surely sprout wings and fly off to the sky like an eagle. That's pretty descriptive, right? If you don't know where your money's going, it could sprout wings and fly off to the sky like an eagle. Fortunately, the U.S. government gives us a reminder of this by putting the eagle on a dollar bill. That's right. When you look at your dollar bill, you can say, you know what? This one's going to fly away unless I tell it where to go. Keep track. Number 6, plan my spending. I need a plan. Okay, here we go. Now we're going to pay debt. Now we're going to pay our bills. And we need to plan how we're going to pay our bills. What was that? Number 6, right? These are in order of importance, how you should be practicing these. If you want to get out of debt, if you want to live financially free, this is a must. If statistics hold true in this room, then most of you don't have a plan for your spending. You're impulsively going out and just, whatever, it's flying away like an eagle. You just kind of spend whatever you want to spend, whenever you want to spend it, and however you want to spend it. You do it impulsively. A plan for spending is a budget. That's what a budget is, planned spending. Everybody needs a budget. You need a budget so you can tell your money where to go, rather than getting to the end of the month and going, where in the world did it go? How do you spell relief? B-U-D-G-E-T. You need a budget, big time. If you want to get out of debt, you need to nip it in the budget. Get a budget together. Proverbs 21:20, a foolish man devours all he has. He's not keeping track. It's gone. It's impulsive buying. You should never go grocery shopping on an empty stomach, right? You should never shop for a new car on a sunny day. You shouldn't go online and shop on Amazon if you're feeling depressed. These are healthy plans. You need to plan bigger, though. Put together a budget. Proverbs 21:5, again, that one says, the plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. You need to plan well. Put together a budget. Here's the 7th. Set up a repayment plan. This is important too, okay? Not only do you have your bills, you got to pay utilities and your mortgage and all this other stuff, but you've got some debt out there that you've got to figure out, how am I going to pay this off? You're not going to get out of debt automatically. It's not going to happen by accident, right? You didn't get into debt overnight either. You're not going to get out of debt overnight. It's going to take some planning. It may take a few years. I am praying for you that every one of you, if you're in debt, that you get out of debt and that you live financially free. That's my prayer. Everybody, member at First Church of Christ, I want you guys to be debt-free. Get out of debt. Dawn and I, we practiced Dave Ramsey's debt snowball. Anybody familiar with that plan? It works, man. It's amazing. You pay off one debt. Instead of putting that money in savings, we put it toward our next lowest debt. And so you could double your payment, so to speak. Once that debt's paid off, now I got 2 debts paid off. Everything that I was putting into those 2 debts, I put into the next one. And it's exciting because you pay off these debts so quickly. And you're like, whoa, this is all, we did that. Man, we owed Sallie Mae, Chase Bank, Ally Financial, and I don't know, we owed a ton of money. We started doing this. We came up with a plan. I don't care what your plan is, you got to do something. Get out of debt. Get out of debt. Proverbs 3:27. The Living Bible interpretation. I like how they interpreted this verse. It says, don't withhold repayment of your debts. Don't say, some other time, if you can pay now. I like that verse. Get out of debt, he says. If you're in debt, you need to be paying on it. You need to be paying it down. Romans 13:8 says, let Oh, wait a minute. We all need to read this one out loud, okay? Ready? Here we go. Let no debt remain outstanding. Ooh. Yeah, God's all about you getting out of debt. He wants to do a miracle in your life. You got to have a plan. You got to have a plan. Okay, here's the last one. Finally, commit it all to God. The first habit is I got to realize that He's the source. He's my source of everything. And the eighth habit is I've got to commit it all to God. It's all His. I say, you know what, God, my life, my time, my relationships, my money, my future, my job, everything that I have, it's all yours. It all belongs to you, Lord. And you know what, Lord? I'm going to start doing it your way from now on. I know it doesn't make sense. The world teaches me differently. But these are kingdom principles. I'm going to trust you, Lord. I'm going to have faith in you. And it's going to go all right. Great is thy faithfulness, right? Proverbs 16:3. I like this. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and your plans will what? Succeed. Give it to God. I want you to succeed in life. Everyone in here, I want you to succeed emotionally, physically, relationally, financially, and especially spiritually. Commit your work to the Lord and your plans will succeed. Your biggest problem is not your debt, I promise you. Debt is a symptom of maybe a deeper problem. It's a symptom of dissatisfaction, maybe a lack of contentment, as we talked about last week. You think maybe, I need to have more to be happier. I need to get more so that friends will love me, and I can have more. I can be more liked and more valuable and more secure. You think that, but none of that's true. It doesn't bring happiness, maybe for the short time. But the truth is, you're only happy as happy as you choose to be. Happiness is a choice. You can't find it in the accumulation of money and things. Jesus taught us that. So here's what I suggest you do. Go home today, this afternoon, and start making a list of things that don't cost you money that you enjoy. Do it. Count your blessings, right? Name them one by one. Make a list of all the things that make you happy that cost absolutely nothing. Sitting on your deck and watching a sunrise or watching the sunset, walking around a park, playing with your children, visiting your relatives, playing cards with your neighbors, whatever it is that makes you happy, make a list and do those things and go get real happiness. You're not going to find it in things. Your problem isn't debt. The problem is unmanaged finances. You're going out and you're buying things you don't need with money you don't have to impress people you don't even like. Stop it. God has a plan for you. He's given us these eight steps. What I want you to do is look at these 8 steps, circle 1 or 2 that maybe you need to work on. Maybe you're sitting there, you know what, God, you really spoke to me in this one area. I want to work on that. And what I want you to do is take it home this week, look at it throughout the week, ask God for some answers. How can I really make this work and pan out in my life? It needs to happen.